neighbors, church members, anyone you know who would benefit from our program this evening, and encourage them to come and join the conversation. We have a really hot topic for you today, and that topic is the role of separated parents in their children's lives. So reach out and call them over, say, hey, log in. We'd like you to come and listen, at least participate in this discussion, and we'll give you a couple more seconds to get everyone on board, and we will get started. So send out your messages and get into those DMs and reach out and call and text and whatever you do to communicate with your people, go ahead and do that right now. Are we connected, Pastor Henry? Not yet?
Yes, we are streaming.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yes.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Real Talk Family Life, building shatterproof families one brick at a time. This is our Saturday evening program, and we are excited that you're here to join with us, and we encourage you to invite others to be with us today. Our topic for this evening is the role of separated parents in their children's lives. I am your host for this evening, Patricia Neff, and I want you to know what our objectives are for this program before I introduce you to the panelists. It is our hope that the audience will understand the importance of identifying effective co-parenting strategies that foster collaboration and reduce conflict, as well as how separated parents can provide emotional support and help children articulate their feelings about the separation. With these two objectives in mind, I would like to introduce to you our panelists for today. We have Pastor Joseph Griffith and Pastor Anthony Henry, both coming to us from Barbados today. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you before we begin our program. Pastor Griffith, I'll begin with you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm always glad to be on the program, and I consider myself as, I don't know if I was here from the very early days, and I'm always glad to be here to contribute because I think it kind of forced me to look into certain subject on development from it. I would say that, well, I'm a pastor. How many years forget? Christian for well over 45 years. And I would say, as far as subject is concerned, that I am practicing parent for 36 years now. And I am, by the grace of God at this moment, believe that I am on the winning side still, but it is an effort that I need to keep at. And I believe that I would like to see more families who will come and, in fact, outdo me. And I will feel that a good thing has been done. That is much as I would say right now.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. And now, Pastor Henry.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Neff. And it's a pleasure again to be with you on the program. Of course, my name is Anthony Henry, and family is my heartbeat. I believe if we have strong families, we would have strong communities. If we have strong communities, we would have strong nations. And somehow I believe that as the Christian church, that responsibility is given to us to build families, to ensure that our world is a different place. So my heart is here, and I trust that as we talk together this evening, that we would all be blessed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just as a preamble to the discussion, I want to make it clear that co-parenting can be challenging. even when both parents are in the home. And it's even more challenging if one or the other is out of the home. But it's challenging because oftentimes parents have different parenting styles.
Mhm.
You know, how we adopt our parenting style has a lot to do with how we were brought up, the parents that we had, and the experiences we had growing up. So because of that, co-parenting can be difficult, can be challenging. That's a better word, can be challenging. So here's my first question for you. What are some key strategies for co-parents to foster effective collaboration and minimize conflict, especially when navigating challenging situations or different parenting styles? What are some of those key strategies you would offer to our audience today to help them in their challenge of co-parenting? Pastor Griffin, let's start with you.
Well, first of all, I think I will try to give you what my understanding about what co-parenting is, because it seems to have a specific reference, even though we are apt to, on surface, take it as the normal cooperation between father and mother with the raising of the children. But so it specifically refers to, as I understand it, to the idea of raising children together still as father and mother after your relationship between the two partners ceases. How do you as a parent continue to see after the total development, mental and physical, emotional well-being of the child? Now, I take the position, first of all, that arriving at such a position is not easy, and there's many reasons why it is not easy. All right, I'll probably get back to that somewhere, but let me answer the specific question. I want to emphasize that the role of parents does not cease when husband and wife or partners relationship, personal, intimate relationship ends. And one of the reasons for that is that children still need the love and care of both parents. I also want to add quickly that no have an easy breakaway. And in these cases, it would be quite difficult for such persons to even have rational decisions. But in spite of whatever the situation is, the sacrifice is necessary. So we get the idea that conflict will occur and expect a conflict occur. And I like the point here that we're talking about collaboration and how do we reduce conflict. I'll offer a few quick points. I suggest that we need to be professional in our relationships when it comes to our child. We go to work every day and we have a professional relationship, code of behavior, conduct, whatever you call it, with our bosses. Yet we don't have any kind of intimacy with our bosses. So if we can accept that it works when we have that relationship with our bosses, then and we can see our duty to our children and that kind of relationship. Once we are separate,
Pastor Griffin, I can't hear you.
You missed your mic, Pastor Griffin.
wait, yeah, you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it come back on the way window. Right. Um, the being professional also implies that we are, I use the word civil. In other words, we be kind. We know how to say good morning, excuse me. We know how to speak politely. So we have that responsibility because it's how we answer that can cause the row. We know that. So facilitating good communication is important. You must have a willingness to accommodate the conditions that serve both child, that serve the interest of the child. In other words, there are a lot of things that may be hard for you to do, you know what I mean, because you and the person don't agree. But then it's not about me, it's not about the child. So I'm going to have to see what I can do and be willing to see what I can do to accommodate. Just say one more pause, because I was talking long. You must have a willingness to, I say, accommodate the children's thing and to be reasonable and to be fair in sharing responsibilities. I'm going to pause.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. Pastor Henry, what strategies would you offer?
Yes, so Dr. Neff, before I go to the strategies, could you just give me probably 2 minutes to put this whole concept of co-parenting within the Caribbean society? So that what I've discovered is there are several research papers out there coming out of Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and Guyana. And all of these show that co-parenting is not very effective in the region. What I learned is that the children of separated parents are more likely to become delinquents, and there are a number of reasons were given. One of the authors said children of separated parents may seek validation or guidance from friends over family. The peer influence, so it goes on to say that peer influence can be particularly impactful as teens spend more time outside their homes and may adopt risky behaviors contributing to delinquency. For example, in one Caribbean study, stronger parental attachment and supervision were linked to lower delinquency, suggesting that stable family bonds help mitigate negative peer influences. There's some other data that indicate that children in single parent or divorced households in the Caribbean are more vulnerable to economic and social challenges, which can further contribute to risky behavior. Now, when we look at the church in the Caribbean seemingly does not have a clear policy on co-parenting. So there are pastoral counselors, some pastoral counselors who will take this extreme view and advise against any type of relationship with an ex for fear that such relationship can ruin the current one. And if one parent is now saved, in some cases, and the other is not, oftentimes Paul's advice on the unequal yoke is used to advocate the severance of the relationship with the unsafe father or mother of the child that was born before the believer's conversion. So it should not matter if the Christian parent has primary or secondary custody for the child, where the child is living with one parent or the other, has regular visitation, or if it is in the case where the child resides with the biological parent and a step-parent, because that is a form of co-parenting also.
Right.
I would like to suggest, these are the principles that I would suggest that would foster effective collaboration and minimize conflict in raising the child. So within this context, I'm saying that, first of all, both parents should establish a clear and defined vision for their child. So whether they are separated or, as I said, they have, they live in this relationship where they're married, but the child belongs to one parent, the children, both parents of that child should have a clear vision for the child. And oftentimes that is missing, even in homes where you have both parents who are parents, where both are, the child belongs to the father and the mother in the same house. The psalmist in Psalm 127, verses 3 and 4, this is a verse we often use when we are doing dedication of babies. But I see a great lesson here. It says, children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. And it's the latter part of the verse that catches my attention. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. The metaphor of children as arrows highlights the importance of direction and purpose. Just as a warrior would carefully aim an arrow to reach its target, so too should parents be intentional and strategic in guiding their children toward godly goals. So the first thing is that both parents, whether they are living, they have been separated, they should establish, if they have not, a purpose and a goal for that child. Should have a clear vision as to what they want from the child. The New Testament directive is also suggesting this. Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So here, Paul is encouraging parents to be purposeful in raising their children in the ways that reflect the teachings of Christ. This includes fostering an environment of love, discipline, and encouragement, allowing children to grow with a clear sense of their identity in Christ. And secondly, we need to, as parents, to clarify values and goals for our children. Sometimes as Christian parents, we fail to do that even for, even though we husband and wife, the children are there with us, we fail to clarify the values and goals for our children. But for co-parents should identify core family values and what they hope their child will prioritize in life. Values such as kindness, resilience, integrity, and faith. A defined vision should reflect these values, guiding the child toward a meaningful life rather than focusing solely on specific achievements or career paths. Because in the Caribbean, we tend to do that, we tell the child as early as I know more so for Trinidad and Tobago, by the time that child is 11 years, that child is drilled into a sort of a frenzy to ensure that it gets into what is called a prestige school. The thing is that 11, 12-year-old child would have studied work that they would be studying again when they get to Form 3, when they're 14, 15 years of age. And this career-oriented or this this focus on getting into schools and getting the best and into colleges without the clear path of values in the child life oftentimes wreck the lives of the child. So we are told in Deuteronomy 6:6-7, and I'm going to pause after the scripture so that if Pastor Griffith wants to come back in, he can. So the Moses is writing to the children of Israel, and he said, these commandments that I give you today are to be in your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. This passage shows that God desires parents to instill his word and commandments continually and consistently. Such a lifestyle creates a framework, a vision centered on God's word, which can help children to navigate life later on.
Right. So I think that made a comment, right? So the issue is that the couple has broken up and children are now they're now up and we need to deal with that. But there's conflict, there's confusion. How do we minimize that? I will speak to one or two quick weird issues that happens. When people separate, somebody decide he ain't supporting. No money ain't coming. I ain't looking after you at school. I ain't doing nothing. You bet for yourself. And when you have a parent where the other parent don't care nothing about the child or neglect the duties, then it is big trouble. Strife. The other thing that happens is that can happen is that there's some parents that will talk bad about the other parent. I've always said that's a bad thing because you are putting the child in a hard spot to want to favor one other parent over the other. And we must remember that the child want a father and he want a mother, right? So don't speak bad to them about their partner, their other parent. Don't ask them to spy. Ask them what kind of question what's going on. And be careful to have a level head when it comes to custodial rights and visitation rights. And you don't expect whether male or female to get the child all by yourself. You know what I mean? So do whatever you can to facilitate that balance between the two. You might want that the child keep some of she or his things at both houses so that and practice if one house got a certain standard, you gotta go sleep at 8 o'clock. When anybody come at you, you go sleep at 8 o'clock because it's standard. And the last point I make in regards to that is that sometimes all those things are difficult. Perhaps if we can find time to talk to somebody professional or third party, maybe they can help us with some sort of guidance. But share time also with your child. In other words, agree to go with the child together to the football match. You don't go on a date with the mother or the father. You have a date with the child, but do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gosh, you said a lot. Okay, so I kind of took what you said and kind of put it under different headings so we could kind of focus and zero in on what you said because you have shared quite a bit. And the first heading that I gleaned from what you've said so far is that of parental responsibility, and where the Bible talks about the importance of nurturing and guiding children. You know, and Pastor Henry talked about having a purpose and having values and goals. That's our responsibility to help guide our children. Ephesians 6:4 advises us to bring children up in the training and instruction of the Lord, right? Then the other topic I gleaned from what you said is that of having unity and purpose. Yes, parents may no longer be romantically together or even married, but they still have that purpose of raising those children. And it's important for parents to have unity in raising and guiding these children. The other major theme I got from what you said so far, it has to do with modeling behavior. You know, parents are called to model godly behavior to their children. Philippians 4:9 encourages believers to practice what they've learned and received. So when we co-parent, we are demonstrating and modeling the kindness that Pastor Henry talked about, the respect, the cooperation to avoid conflict. And another theme that I pulled from what you shared is also that of focusing on the child's well-being. You know, Pastor Griffith just shared a number of things that focuses on the child's well-being. Co-parents should prioritize their children's emotional development, their spiritual development, their physical well-being, ensuring that all decisions that are made are with the best interest of the child in mind. And if parents focus on that and the well-being of the child, they'll veer away from the spying and the questioning and all that stuff that Pastor Griffith talked about and focus on what's best for that child. Because it's important for parents to remember that that child is part you, and half the other parent, right? And when you say something negative about the other parent, you are in essence saying something negative about that child, right? When you say things like, oh, your mother this or your father this, you are saying the same thing to that half of that child. And that's what the child is hearing, especially if the child bears features, strong features and resemblance of that other parent, you know. And I've heard parents say, every time I look at you, I see, so you are just breaking down that child's self-esteem every time you say something negative in that regard. So focus on the child's well-being so that you can help raise that child in the way that the Bible instructs us to do. Thank you, gentlemen, for your input on that question. I'm going to look to the chat and see if there's anything in the chat waiting for us. Where's my chat?
Not as yet.
I don't see anything as yet. So I want to encourage those of you who are listening in to, if you have any questions, as these gentlemen share their thoughts with you, go ahead and put those in the chat. If you have any comments, you can put those there as well. And if you decide to ask your question in person, raise your hand and we will call on you so you can then ask the questions that you have. So I'm going to move on to question number 2. And this question says, how can separated parents provide emotional support and create a safe space for their children to express their feelings about the separation while ensuring the child's emotional well-being is prioritized? I'll read it again. How can separated parents provide emotional support and create a safe space for their children to express their feelings about the separation while ensuring the child's emotional well-being is prioritized? Pastor Henry, I'm going to come to you first.
So I think one of the things that is so missing when you have these breakups is love. Love that is supposed to endure, love that is supposed to bear no records of wrong. And so when you have these breakups, oftentimes the love that both individuals share in having this child, it jumps out of the window. And as you mentioned, and Pastor Griffith would have alluded to also, that the child, for the parents, the child must become the focal point. We cannot agree. We didn't have our life right. We didn't have things working right. We made bad decisions. We didn't deal with each other the right way, but we have broken up. We have moved on, but we still have our child. And you have to find a way to consistently reinforce the message that we both parents love you. So that because of the breakup, you may not be able to say to each other anymore, I love you, and mean it. But you should be able to get that message to your child. I love you. Your mother loves you. Your father loves you. Because we are thinking, you are thinking about your child. Separation can cause children to feel a sense of loss, can feel a sense of, and start to worry about and feel a sense of abandonment. So reminding them, that child, that he or she is loved and valued by both parents, regardless of situation, can provide crucial emotional stability. That love shouldn't just be expressed in words. I think it was just today I was hearing the preacher saying that the Christians speak too much about love instead of doing what is love. So showing up for special events in the child's life can be reassuring of that love. And so the little things that you would have normally done when the child lived with you, when you and the mother or the father lived together, now that you're separated, you make sure that you become just as involved in the child's life to ensure that the love that you have for that child is passed on to the child. Model healthy emotional expressions. That is very important. It can be helpful to model healthy ways of expressing feelings, like talking about your own emotions. And you do that calmly and constructively. For instance, saying, I feel sad about the change, sometimes too, but I know we will get through this together. So when you are feeling sad, don't feel badly to express and let the child see that, you are suffering from what you are going through. Show them that it is normal to feel a range of emotions, but never express negative emotions in the presence of your children. And of course, you just need to go to Colossians chapter 4 and you'll see what I'm talking about. You put aside anger and rage and malice and what have you and so on. You don't want those emotions to be visible or to be recognized by the child through you. And so you make sure that when you are meeting, that you put those aside, right? And you deal with them. Between the parents, the two parents, you set boundaries, stick to agreements, agree on boundaries for communication, such as the preferred methods, whether you're going to use email or text, the times when you are going to do discussion with the child, but the whole idea of respecting each other's personal time is important. Stick to previously made agreements about routines and responsibility helps establish trust and stability for the child. I think Pastor Griffith was talking the real Caribbean situation when he mentioned that oftentimes when there is a separation, one person may take on the role of God and decides to punish. And so if I have the child, you're not getting to see the child, you can't come, you can't do this. And oftentimes simple matters that can be established, decided upon and agreed upon in a counseling room. The monies that could have gone to the child, the well-being of the child, is spent for lawyer fees and for going to courts and what have you and so on. And so I'm saying that, if you as the parents set proper boundaries and you stick to agreements, then you will probably you would definitely be helping the child, and probably it's because you didn't in the relationship that caused the relationship to fall apart. So it's not too late. It's not too late, even though it's fall apart. You're doing it now for the child. You have messed up, and you agree that both of you need to take responsibility for what went on that caused the breakup, but the child is of utmost importance. And so you would need to sit down, and when you go to the counselor, when you go to the paid counselor, when you go to the lawyer, he or she is going to ask you to do the same thing, to build agreements by which you all are going to manage the life of the child. And it doesn't make sense having agreements if you're not sticking with them. Stay focused, stay child-centered, stay focused on the child. During discussion or when disagreements arise, consistently refocus on the child's needs and best interests. Avoid letting personal differences overshadow this shared goal of providing a stable, loving environment for the child. So I think I would pause there, yes.
Okay. Pastor Griffin, what would you add to that?
But the question in itself is full of advice. And it is actually pointing us, do they call it a leading question? I don't know. It is clear that we need to provide emotional support and a safe space. And we need to encourage children or to facilitate children expressing their feelings. All right. It's all about giving them priority as it really is. Now, so the word coping becomes important here. I just say a few things that I think that are important. One, let your child know that you love him and you love her, right? And the separation of you two is one of the things that has happened with adults sometimes, but it doesn't change your love. And this is your plural for the child, and I would trust that all of us will give the signal. The other thing that is important is, I actually implied it just now, is that to have those discussions appropriately with the age to explain these things to children. Like I said just now, this is how things does work, right? And children also have a way of once the parent had broken up, they would think, you know what, daddy leave mommy or left mommy because I break the cup last night or last Thursday, never forgive me, but daddy cup. He angry with mommy, right? So it is important that we do our best to be sensitive to the potential emotional conflict that might be occurring in children and see if we can work or we can help them. And I said earlier in another instance that sometimes it may become complex. Quickly, I was having a discussion just a few days ago, and the gentleman says, look, this little boy just come out and take a bat and knock down all the sugar apples. He said, and what's interesting is that the sugar apples is really on it's close to his property, but it's on my property, and it's my sugar apple tree, and he come along sugar apples. I said, but at first I said, but we very wicked. But then I said, but is he not really angry? And that is why he's doing that. So the point remains that children's behavior, sometimes the violence at school, the poor grades, these kind of things, suggests that the children are having some emotional difficulty. And therefore, our job as parents are to see whatever we can to.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. We lost you at the end, so check your volume again.
I don't know, my things are jumping.
It's back. It's back.
That's okay. There is Brother Georgie has his hand raised. Brother Georgie, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Now, during the pre-separation, you find where it was so heated. Sometimes you would find where physical abuse, it take place. And how do you actually deal with a child after such? Because that child would have witnessed so many things in the household. And the hurt, the pain is there. But now both parties, both parents they're trying to make amends. But that child has already been, as you would say, hurt and damaged as a result of what has taken place before the separation has done. So how do you actually deal with such?
Well, I would have said earlier, you hear me, right? You hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have said earlier that some relationships end because of pain and hurt. All right? But we are emphasizing that there are some cases that can be too much for us. And if we can get the two parents to understand the child is in a dilemma, we can't do the better, we got to get the professional help. And in this case, because I'm acknowledging that one parent may still be difficult, the onus is on that parent that is a little more wise, if I can use that word, to seek professional help. They can't do it, call for help.
But my question here is with the child, because that child, the both parents are seeking help, but how do we help that child to get over that hurdle? Because there's a saying that, hurting people hurt people. So in that case now, you would look at so many things that is happening in our society now as a result of such, and another side of it where the father is absent altogether. So that child is out there hurting people because of what is happening. So how do we deal with such a matter?
Yeah, but I thought I said that two things. I'm assuming the child is the victim here who needs the help. And I'm saying that we have to refer this child to some form of professional counselor because we cannot handle the situation. I pause.
Okay.
Pastor Henry, you had something to add?
Yeah, the thing is that with families, breakup in families is not easy on the child. And one of the things that we have to understand is that as adults find it very difficult when there's a breakup. And the child who is dependent on the adults will always find it even more difficult.
Yes.
And what is bad about this, oftentimes one parent may use the child as a pawn to get what they want. And it's the world in which we are in, and that's why I firmly believe that we need to get back to helping individuals to build a proper foundation to start with. It's true that those who do not know Christ, those who are out of the church, they would have all of these problems. But if we can get better marriages, better relationships, people can know what they're about, that as pastors, when two people choose to be married, we don't just give them a few scripture verse and get them going, but we seek to open to them as much as is possible as to what is out there, so that when they're settled, we do not have to spend the time as pastors to deal with our church members who are having these kind of issues. We can refocus our attention on those who are in the community. We need to make our church advertise our church as not just being a place where people come and worship and give offering. It should be a place in the community where people can come and receive help, and not just a little food basket, but we need to encourage our young people that professional counseling is a way of helping people today. So I definitely understand Brother Georgie, because the complexity of the situation and the difficulties, and as I mentioned in the preamble, that the Caribbean society goes through this rapidly. Their broken homes, their broken lives, and the people who suffer the most are the children. And if they get past the bullet, they are going to have they're going to have their guns and what have you and so on. And that's the kind of a thing that is perpetrated on the society. I was shocked.
Let me come back. Sorry.
Just 1 minute, please, Pastor.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago, I was speaking to a gentleman who operates a funeral home, and he was telling me that this young guy came in and ordered his coffin. Yes. Some time ago, I was talking to a little fellow who was coming to Sunday school with his mom. His mom stopped coming, and he eventually wasn't coming anymore. And I met him in Port of Spain. How are you doing? Why are you not coming back to church, Pastor? I have too much ghosts on me. I have too much ghosts. And so poor me, stupid, not even understanding the vernacular in which the guy is talking, repeated the language and everybody is laughing at me. What do you mean by you? So what I took it to mean that he, by being in church, heard us talking about the Holy Ghost. So he has too many ghosts. Guys talking about the number of people that he killed. Right. And we have to understand that parenting is very important. And if you cannot make it as a parent together, parents together, a life has already come into the world. Let us work together to save this life from going through the pain that we have been through.
Yeah, my final comment, if I call it final, is remember I referred to the professional, but I should also suggest that we've heard that it takes a village to raise a child. And I was having a discussion with my wife, I weren't going to know, even tonight with the situation that I'm saying, God, just teach me and tell me exactly what I should do in this case. Should I pull back and tell anybody, back for yourself? Or should I be patient and say, look, this is part of the healing that is necessary. I need to be patient enough to reach out and to help. Because I'm trying to help, but you're making all the wrong things. Should I give up or should I keep on trying? I told my wife I came on, I am trusting that God will help me to understand. What I'm trying to say here is that we as individuals need to understand that we have a role. And I, Joseph, need to learn to build relationships. Sometimes I may be able to say to my good friend I know, look, I'm having trouble with Michael or David or Suzanne and so and so. Perhaps you might be able to talk with you, but say, let me talk with you. And they got with them and they will find their own way to get into it. So I just want to add quickly that sometimes you may not necessarily need to get to the profession because you say you got no money, but there are other support people, family people, friends, objective. Use those processes.
Wow. Thank you, gentlemen. Again, we've captured a lot, right? So let me kind of put it in smaller bites for you. Pastor Henry started off saying that we need to reassure our children of our love for them. We need to consistently reassure them that both parents love them and that this separation is not their fault. And we need to continually reinforce that love so that they feel secure in that love that the parents have for them. Validating their feelings is also very important. We need to acknowledge and validate our children's feelings. If they're feeling hurt, angry, upset, whatever, we need to validate those feelings and say, well, I understand that you are sad, and that's a real feeling. Tell me what it feels like, and just help the child talk it through, right? But validate their feelings, because what they're feeling is real, and they need to know that you understand that they have real feelings and emotions about this situation. And you can do that, of course, by encouraging open communication so that they feel that your home is a safe space for them to talk about their feelings. And then as you encourage them to express their thoughts and their emotions without fear of judgment, without fear of being punished, then you help them to really explore and get those feelings out. It's important for us to be available and present, right? Fully present with our children as we have those conversations, because we want to ensure that we're actively listening to what they're saying so we can continue to validate those feelings. Pastor Griffith talked about the importance of sharing age-appropriate information. Sometimes as parents, we overshare, right? The little boy may ask, well, Mommy, why did you and Daddy break up? And then Mommy goes into all of the things that led to this and overshared, went way above the child's head and just confused and totally created a more chaotic experience, traumatic, that's the word, traumatic experience for that child than should have been. Keep it age appropriate. Just keep it age appropriate. Just answer that little question at their age level so that the child understands it. Be honest with them, but avoid all the overwhelming details that may further traumatize them. We have to be careful about traumatizing our children. We have to monitor their behavior, and this, when Brother Georgie asked about the child experiencing things in the home and with the couple, and things that may be very traumatic that has the child totally messed up. Again, if the parents are unable to fully address the emotional distress of that child, it is important, as Pastor Griffith says, to seek professional help from a counselor, from a therapist, from a parenting coach, someone who is able to address the child's emotional needs and help bring them back to emotional health. Whether it's the village, whether it's the pastor, or maybe you have someone in a position that I am at my church. I'm the parenting coach and the parenting educator. So oftentimes they come to me, right? You may have someone there who does that and who can provide that coaching to the parents to help teach them how to address their children's fears and anxiety. And hopefully, parents who are co-parenting could at least, if they keep the child's best interest in mind, could at least stay cooperative enough just for their child. Avoid all the other pitfalls and work together to help that child to be nurtured and brought back to well-being, so that emotional distress and trauma does not cause what Brother Georgie says, people hurt people, right? So if we surround that child with enough love and care and support, even from the parents who are separated and pulled apart, even from them, if the child receives that emotional support, they can get through this traumatic experience and stabilize to where their well-being can be protected. So that's what I pulled from all of what you're saying, and I did add a little bit myself, but yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing that. Whew. What's in the chat? I tell you, you guys are sharing a lot of nuggets here right now. We do have Pastor Paul Arundel, who is with us this evening for the first time. And I just want you to know that you are welcome to jump in at any time to share some ideas and to add to the conversation. So I want to put that plug in there, because I may come back to you for some comments from you when you're ready. Our third question today is simply this, and it continues the conversation or the discussion of question number 2. Why do separated parents often handle conflict more effectively than they did while in the relationship? Why did it take for the breakup of the relationship for them to figure out how to handle conflict more effectively? I'm going to leave this open. Let's see which gentleman is going to jump in first with their response.
Okay, so let me go then. I think there are two responses that come to mind. Didn't actually now come to mind. I think one, experience is the greatest of teachers, and 2, the devil is a deceiver. Because it is fact, it's out there, and several individuals have told me, we are doing better now that we have broken up. So it is either the devil, while the relationship is on, literally create enough deception to create the conflict. And 2, the individuals may have learned from their mistakes in the conflicts. So that may be some of, 2 of the reasons. But I think that not being together, not being in each other's face, would have given the parties time to reflect on some of the issues, and the whole idea of the dynamics being changed by not living together can be one of the reasons why they they're less conflicted. And so in the relationship, the daily interactions can include responsibilities, household issues, emotional complexities, and the list goes on. And so separation provides that physical and emotional space, allowing each partner to approach disagreements with fewer triggers. And finally, sadly, but when you are separated, there is a reduction in power struggle. And I think that was the problem that started the whole fall and dilemma of humanity. Eve would not eat the fruit. God said we should not eat. And she would not eat the fruit because God says not to eat. So it wasn't disobedience at all. But when she heard that you will be like God, and you would have power to know like God, seemingly she couldn't resist that whole concept of having power. And let's face it, especially within the Caribbean society, we continue with the power struggle because we feel that that responsibility, that authority, like the slave master, is in the one who controls what is going on. And sadly, within the church, we have helped to propagate that sort of an idea. The man is the boss. And oftentimes in a world where things have changed so drastically, where women are concerned, I say in the world, not in America, but where things have changed so drastically in the world, where women are taking control and women are at the helm of everything, we need to understand that in Christ, there should neither be male nor female. We should be one in Christ, respecting each other as individuals. So when separation comes, I think we learn our lessons from what we have been through.
Thank you, Pastor Henry.
I was looking into this. You can hear me, right? It just confirmed because I find my mic seems to be dancing, bro. I don't know if the computer won't be starting, but it's keep changing. But you can hear me. I was looking into this here, and I read somewhere on the internet. Somebody was sharing in a blog, that's what it's called it. I think so. That she says, but she began to talk about how good her husband was and the best husband, and even though they break up, and I asked myself, so what are you complaining about? The woman, she's the best father and everything. And she admit the truth was that it was difficult for me. I had a lot of emotional issues, and I had to be admitted to get my own counseling and help. I was not a faithful wife. She didn't define what is faithful. But Pastor Henry hinted that perhaps sometimes the separation have caused people to rethink about what they have done, and they can come to the senses. And while the other partner might not be willing to come back together, you accept that it's your fault and do take the best of the situation. So that is one of the things that happen. I don't know if I need to tell you what Amos said about can two walk together unless they agree. But while meditating on this question, I come to the conclusion that the greater the contention, and the more contentious the breakup, the more difficult it is. But there's some people who can come and say, look, I think we should pause or we should end this relationship. And the two of them can normally agree and walk out of it as easy as possible. What I'm implying there is that because we break down, we become angry, and we won't talk to one another, we soon be quick to go to the law courts, and that in itself creates a problem. I was having a discussion some weeks ago, maybe two, hardly more than that, with some person who've gone through, with female, a divorce, and they're still having issues with the final settlements or whatever, but it's extremely under stress. And the debate is to what should they do? Should they go back to court? ... The question is, but if the person is not in a position to do so and so, what will the court do? And the person says, in spite of what encouragement, they were getting encouraged to go back to court. But the person says, not me, not me. I ain't doing that. I don't want to see that again. In other words, if you listen to that person speak, going to court was so traumatic that they would do anything to avoid the conflict. Perhaps because that the amount of things that come out, people got to prove why I left. It was Sheik's fault or whatever, who fault it was, and they wish she did or he did. And I am told that in America, there's some law they call the Collaborative Law Act, which encourage couples before they come to court to see if they can sit down with perhaps their lawyer and come up to a mutual agreement. And they have realized that that kind of approach helps. And I would add two quick things, that the point remains that some people who are living together, and this is a point I want to underscore a lot, are going through severe 24-hour, you get my point, stress. But if you can take yourself out of that environment,
I think your mic is
better.
going.
I can take better. And I mentioned about the court just now, and here's the point, that they call it the no-fault divorce, where you don't go to court, I said, to prove whose fault it is, right? The issue is to avoid depression of going court and the negative implications of the constant battle, because one lawyer can say we can trippy clean and the other boys can defend. So perhaps we are saying that if they can agree to disagree or to separate, then or acknowledge their fault after they separate, that can explain why they can feel better or live better outside. No. That's just my input.
So, Dr. Neff, one last point.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, not a point really, but just to support what was being said. Years ago, I had this gentleman came to get married. He was divorced. And back then, you know how getting married and divorced was held among Pentecostal people. So I felt, listen, I am going to go ahead with the counseling because he had been divorced for like 6 years or something like that. And now he's getting married. He wants to get married. But I made a condition to him. I said, listen, if I'm going to marry you, I have to meet with your previous wife, because people tend to carry baggage from one relationship to the other. So I don't want to hear the baggage you had. I want to hear from your wife what caused the divorce. And the guy was so nice. He came with the previous wife one evening, and I sat down with her, and she said to me, Pastor, this divorce was my fault. I was young, I was foolish, I had a gem, and I lost him because I saw the world the way that I was brought up. And now that I'm a little older, I'm getting to understand. God bless the woman that he's getting married to. All right, so that I say all of that to say that people learn from separation. They learn from divorces. And that's why I say to people, if things are not working in a married relationship, if you choose to separate, I would advise that you separate and not go through with the divorce, which would make things a little bit more difficult. So as to give you time to rethink what you want to do finally.
All right, let me look to see if there's anything in the chat. Nothing in the chat. Again, you gentlemen shared a lot of nuggets. I'm going to start with Pastor Henry talked about when people separate or divorce, when they separate, They no longer have the power struggles, right? I call that increased independence. Now each of them have their own level of independence. And after separation or what have you, they may feel more empowered to express their feelings, their thoughts, their needs, and opinions regarding the children. Whereas maybe when they were in that romantic relationship, when they were still together, one may find it very difficult to express their feelings or feel that the other overpowers them to the point where they can't fully express themselves. But now they have that increased independence to express their feelings. Again, that the reduction in emotional intensity, which is often part of romantic relationships, is diminished after separation. And this can lead to more rational thought, more rational discussions. For some, it'll be after all the conflict stuff. You know, it may not happen right away. You may have to wait and get through all of that emotional conflict, but eventually they may begin to have more rational discussions, especially if their priority is the best interest of the child and the child's emotional well-being. Their perspective may shift, as you mentioned, Pastor Henry. You know, after being distanced from each other, their perspective may shift, and they may recognize that some of the patterns that they had or engaged, the behavioral patterns that they engaged in their relationship were destructive to the relationship. And they now have a clear perspective on their role in destroying that relationship. And they may say, just like the young lady said, you know, it was my fault, and he has my blessing. So those are some of the things that may come about, you know, and to cause parents who are separated but co-parenting to now come together and be more efficient and effective in how they work with their children, and in how they help them to develop emotionally, and how they help to handle conflict within that relationship that's within the best interest of the child. That their communication may be more focused on what's best for the child, you know, and their personal feelings and views and issues, they may have learned to set those aside, lay those aside, and focus only on what's productive for the child, so that the child's needs may be met. And now they have what we call a shared goal, which they couldn't come to when they were together. They couldn't have that shared goal. But now, because they're focused on what's best for the child, they have this shared goal of ensuring their child's well-being, and they tend to be more collaborative in addressing conflict that may affect the child. So there's a whole lot involved in co-parenting and in working with children and helping parents understand their role. And I truly believe that if parents see their role and their responsibility towards their children as an act of stewardship, because it's stewardship. In my perspective, it's stewardship. We are given stewardship over these children to raise them and grow them up in the way that God desires us to grow them up, because he has, again, as it says in Jeremiah, you know, he has a plan and purpose for every life. And it's our job as stewards of our children to get them on that path so that they can fulfill the plan and the purpose that God has for them. So I'm going to ask you gentlemen to think about your closing remarks. I'm going to give the audience another opportunity to ask questions, raise their hands. I'm going to go to the chat and see if there's something there, and there is. Can the separation cause the man or woman to search for someone else? Oh, this can lead to temptation. And this is in regards to what you said, Pastor Henry, about you suggest that they separate and not rush to divorce as they try to figure out what's going on with them. Pastor Henry, could you address this?
So
No,
I'm seeing the question. Could you just read it back for me, please?
Can the separation cause the man or woman to search for someone else? This can lead to temptation. Oh,
Yes,
he's directly to me. Go ahead.
that is scriptural. It's scriptural. that Paul addresses it in the First Corinthians, I think it's chapter 7. He addresses it so that when you are separated, it is likely that you are going to have the temptations to satisfy your sexual needs. And so let me just say to the audience, you should never ever get married for the satisfaction of sexual needs. Paul says, I advise that you do it so that you would not burn. But I would say that there is a lot more in marriage than to just sexual relationships, and the day will come when somehow the desire for that person will no longer be, may not be there, and you just open yourself for all sorts of other temptations. Learn to overcome your temptations, learn to be victorious over them, so when you are put in a situation where your wife or your husband isn't around, you do not fall just simply because of the emotional needs for sexual relationships.
Pastor Griffith, you were about to say something as well?
Well, let me say quickly, Paul says also that the Lord say, let not the two separate. He said, but if you do separate, remain in that state or be reconciled. I would assume, however, that I would take the context that the people already going through hell, if I can use that word, and they're ready for the court. Let me walk. And I think what the pastor was implying, I could be wrong, was that let's cool off. Find a cooling off period. You are already there. Cool your head and decide. That's how I was saying that.
Thank you. All right, hopefully we've addressed your question, and if there are any other questions, again, please put them in the chat. I'm going to go to the panel for their closing remarks. Pastor Griffin, would you please give us your closing remarks?
Too many children are suffering because of parental neglect. And we need to understand that if our marriages or our relationships end, it does not mean that our responsibility for creating an environment that is conducive to the proper and full development of our children ends. Like you said, Madam Moderator, earlier, that children are a combination of half daddy, half mommy, and all the genetics too that inside there. And it means that the parents are morally bonded, and more than morally, because half the sperm and the egg, you give half and daddy give half. So the relationship with rearing your child, I believe, is irrevocable. It cannot be changed. That is how it really is. So we have that responsibility. I want to repeat what I said earlier, that I know that it becomes difficult, and it's a fact that some partners who break up are irrational, or you can't reason with them, and some of them might not even demonstrate the capacity that they are capable still of being a right parent. What that emphasizes is something that my son says, and I keep saying it all the time. He keeps saying that a man should never, breed a goat. And that's from a man perspective. I believe the opposite is also true, that women must be careful not to get pregnant by a Billy. I hope you get the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. But Pastor Henry?
So I would say no family, whether married or common law, should prepare for separation. So you shouldn't go into a relationship with the thought of separation.
Right.
Those in common law relationships, as a Christian pastor, I would say to you, should be thinking about getting married. Separation happens, and happens for numerous reasons. If and when it does, the children should never be seen as a part of the spoil. They are God's gift to both parents and should always be treated that way. They never contributed to your separation and should not be made to suffer for it. Whatever the child becomes in life, or let me put it differently, you should ensure that the child becomes the person of,
You have not been lived.
a person that you would be proud of, that when that child says mommy or daddy, you feel very proud of being that child's mommy or daddy. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. You know, I love the lessons that the Bible teaches us, and I go back to Mary and Joseph, and there are so many lessons that are entrenched in their relationship. Again, you have an unmarried woman who the Holy Spirit has placed God's Son in, and she marries her husband, and he is challenged to raise God's son.
Yes.
And so he's co-parenting a child that's not his own. In the beginning, Pastor Henry talked about the different ways co-parenting comes about, and another way it comes about is by having to parent a child that's not your own. And it's demonstrated how he showers his love and training on this child, Jesus. Even though he has a heavenly Father and he gets all that from him, but he also shows us, God is showing us how even when we are faced with having to parent a child that's not our own, that the love and nurturing and the stewardship that's given to us for this child is still our responsibility, and that we are to take on that responsibility with all of the grace and the kindness and the forgiveness and the love and everything that God has placed in us, so that we impart these things into these children. And as parents, whether you're co-parenting through separation, through marriage, whatever, however your co-parenting comes about, if we keep in the child's best interest in mind and we focus on raising the child to fulfill the life goal that God has placed in that child before he or she was formed in his mother's womb, that we will be fulfilling God's purpose on this earth. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next week, we continue the conversation because there's so much more to this than just what we covered tonight. So we will continue the conversation on the role of separated parents in their children's lives, part 2. And we look forward to seeing you there. Please invite others to come and join us. And I'm going to give this back to Pastor Henry so he can close us out. Pastor Henry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neff. Thank you, Pastor Griffith. Thank you all for joining, and the Lord bless you richly. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday at 7:30 p.m. I'm going to ask Pastor Arundel if he could just stay online for a while, and the host and Pastor Griffith, and let's just chat a little bit. And Lord bless you all. Have a wonderful evening. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we are all here. Pastor Arundel, we would love to hear your feedback. You're muted.
I'm on. You hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you
Yes,
now.
we can.
Good evening to Dr. Patricia, Pastor Joseph, and Pastor Henry.
Yes.
It is in fact a pleasure to be a guest, if I should say, on the panel today. And the discussion was very encouraging, very uplifting, very edifying. I was really motivated by all that I heard from you all as a younger man to you all. What will I say is that